has been for the last 2 years as the joint managing director, which is also the hotel that we are in, is owned by the Brigade group, and this is one amongst several hotels that the group has. She's also responsible for the rest of the businesses, which is the residential business, the commercial business, the retail business, which is the mall alongside. There's a whole host of clubs which are owned in the different residential projects. And of course, she's the founder of something called Brigade REAP. So she wears a different hat there. REAP is a real estate accelerator program where they have nurtured, how many startups now?
70 till date.
70 startups till date. And I think this is over about what, 7, 8 years?
7 years.
7 years. And several of these startups have gone on to become a lot more valuable, have got further invested. So if you look at the paper value of REAP, it's quite significant compared to what has been initially invested. And then there are, of course, some iconic restaurants which have been started. Also has a love for art. So there was an art walk which used to be in this, connecting the World Trade Center to this building. So to that extent, lots of different things that Nirupa does. But more importantly, she is an Ironman triathlete. And if you really look at her, you wouldn't really think she's an Ironman triathlete, but she is. And she participates across the world in various triathlete events. And I think, which was the last that you went to?
So last one was Copenhagen.
Copenhagen.
Yeah.
So, you know, sometimes when you think of a triathlete's life, the physical and the mental stress that you put yourself through is often unimaginable for the common person, because you're, you know, swimming so long, cycling so long, running, and all these things. It's absolutely unimaginable. So one of the questions I want to ask you, Nirupa, is about, you know, when you think about all of the stress that you put yourself through in these triathlons which you participate, you know, how do you handle the role of, let's say, joint managing director? Then you've got another role, which is you're the daughter of the chairman. You've got another role, which is that you're a mother and a wife. And so you're kind of balancing between so many different things that sometimes I'm sure a triathlon might seem like small stuff.
Thank you for the question, Biju. So I don't know how many of you know what an Ironman is. Maybe you can raise your hands if you do, but maybe few of you. So I think only 3-4 of you know what an Ironman is. So it's a long endurance event. So it is all, everybody says, right, life is a marathon, not a sprint. So this is it's a very long endurance event. So what you have to do in an Ironman, it's a triathlon event. So there are 3 spots. It's a 3.8 kilometer swim, followed by a 180 kilometer bike, followed by a 42.2 kilometer run. And you have to do it within 15 to 17 hours. They have the cutoff, 16 to 17 hours. Different races have different cutoff times. So you have to do it within, say, 17 hours. So the training is quite intense. I didn't do it overnight. I actually spread it over almost 2 years. And I want to say that anybody can go from couch potato to Ironman in 2 years, because it kind of requires that. And I feel that there are a lot of parallels between training for an Ironman and conducting your life in an organized and disciplined way. Because in order to train for this kind of an event, you need at least 14-15 hours a week to train. So it requires a lot of time management skills, because obviously when you're working through the day and work hours are high pressure, you have to be very present at work, so you can't come in tired or sleepy to work. So it required changing my entire lifestyle. I used to be a person who goes to bed late and wakes up late, but I had to become somebody who goes to bed by 9:30 and wake up at 4:35. You kind of give up your Sundays. So during the week, I could train only an hour and a half because of whatever work requirements that were there. But it meant that on Saturday and Sunday, I had to make up for all the other hours. So it required me to wake up at 4 a.m. on Sundays and cycle, say, from 5 in the morning to 2 in the afternoon, if you need to train. So you need to you need to get your body accustomed to training. For me, the whole event took about 14 hours, 45 minutes. So that means I started the event at 7 in the morning, and I finished only at 10:30 at night.
Wow.
So it's cardio. You're basically running or swimming or cycling for like 14, 15 hours at a stretch. So I was telling a friend this, and they said, man, I can't even sleep for that long if you tell me to. So, yeah. So I think how it helped me in my professional life, I would say, is that first it makes you really very conscious of time management. There's no coffee break, tea break, lunch break is 10 minutes. All my meetings used to be scheduled for 1 hour. Now I schedule them in 15-minute slots because I'm like, hey, do we really need to talk for 1 hour, or can we just consolidate this into 30 minutes or 15 minutes? Thankfully, due to COVID, online meetings became the norm. So there are meetings literally on my way to office, on the way back. Every minute in the car is used for meetings. So you become just like a machine, and I feel like I did become like a machine for the last 6 months of the training. And of course, everything in your life has to be on point. Your sleep, people say it's 3 sports, but the 4th sport is nutrition and the 5th sport is actually sleep. If you don't sleep and you don't get enough rest, you really can't run your day properly. So there are so many aspects you have to get right of your life. You have to become like a robotic machine and conduct your day like a machine. And it was really good. I mean, it tired me out by the end of it, but for those few months, I became like a machine. And it makes you, I think, very mentally strong. So like whatever comes your way, you're able to just sort of take it in your stride. Because, and you realize that see, if I just tell you these stats, 3.8K swim, 180K bike, 42 kilometers, somebody who's not training for it thinks, man, that's crazy. How can you do it? But if you actually split that whole distance up over 2 years, and there's actually a method in the training, and if you gradually take it up, it's very possible. So I feel like just in life, right, we have big problems, whether it's business, whether it's personal, but I feel like if you deconstruct those problems into smaller things and just work on it every day and just work on small improvements every day, by the end of it, you're able to resolve it. So I think there were a lot of parallels between my learnings from training for the Ironman versus business
Planning
problems.
for work.
Yeah, but the last part is you need a supportive family, and I felt like that time with family took a hit. Something has to give somewhere, so the time with family definitely was cut short. So you need to prep your family that you won't be seeing them for a few months.
Yeah, but I think the point to take out is the fact that training for an Ironman gives you a certain discipline which you can apply to work and to personal life, which will help you to be able to surmount the problems that you would typically face. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Switching to another note, which is retail. You have a series of malls across the city. And when you look at what's happening in the world of retail, and we had some discussions about it in the morning, life is getting more digital, and which is happening both for retailers as well as for consumers. Online is making a stronger presence. Value is becoming stronger today in the lives of people, especially those who've been pressured because of inflation. So there is, we've heard of the famous K-type recovery and all those things. So that's a third thing which is happening. So when you think of all of these aspects which are likely to affect retail, and consumers evolve to it and brands are evolving, how do malls actually evolve to be able to confront these issues?
Yeah, so our brand is Orion Malls, and hopefully all of you have seen not just this one, but we have 2 more, one in Banaswadi Main Road and one on Old Madras Road. And we are planning to expand our whole retail portfolio. But I think when you build a mall, the 4 walls or what you build is there to last for the next 40, 50 years or whatever number of decades you want to depreciate the asset over. So they're not very agile from what you have already built, right? So you get to play only within those few walls of the mall. And what I have found difficult, I'm not from the retail industry. I guess I'm maybe 5 or 6 years into the retail industry, so I'm sure there are many veterans here that have been there much longer. But as a person, I consider myself relatively new to the space. What I find difficult is the lack of agility in retail, in offline retail. Like these long tenures of 18 years for theaters or 18 years for FEC or 9 years for restaurants. I feel like the world is changing too fast for these kind of terms, right? Like for instance, for me today to say, hey, cinema 18-year term I can sign today, it sounds crazy because we don't know what will happen to the whole cinema space. In fact, when we've spoken to our friends, whether it's Cinepolis, whether it's PVR, and they're all having to reinvent themselves as to how will they react or how will they compete with OTT platforms. When you talk to FEC, right? Today something might work, but we don't know what consumer preferences are going to be, whether it's 3 years from now or 7 years from now. So how do you sign a term for say 12 years? Similarly, for restaurants, the number of restaurants that go bankrupt or don't work out is a very high percentage. So for you to sign a 9-year term without any performance clauses or, you know, just say, okay, you take this for 9 years and have a steady increase every few years is very difficult because the market or the world is so different. New concepts might come in, and malls, I feel, lack a sense of agility. And I feel like our job and what we are trying to do is trying to bring in agility. So how do you do that, right? So what are some of the things we're doing to bring in agility, to bring in changing consumer preferences? One is, of course, reducing the terms, trying to reduce the terms, not a very popular move with many retailers, but that is something we have to do, or at least put in performance clauses such that if they don't perform, then it's easy to exit some of the brands. The second is, like you said, online, I think e-commerce is growing probably at 30% a year. Like CAGR has been 30%, expected to continue at 30% or so. Whereas offline retail has been growing at maybe, I think, maybe 15%, 13 to 15% or so. So obviously, offline retail brands have been growing slightly slower than their platforms online. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to create a space for a lot of local brands, a lot of online brands that want to go offline, and create a space that will change every few months. So within a mall, take a space, say 5,000 square feet or 10,000 square feet, and create a space that will have changing, that will change every few months with different online brands that want to test the market offline. There is one startup that we mentored called Lightstore that is doing it. So basically, they rent from us, say, for 2 years or so, but they change the brands every 3 months within the space. So instead of having a 2-month fit-out period, they have a 48-hour fit-out period. So I feel generally we need to be more agile in retail because, again, I keep asking the team, why do we need 2 months every time for a fit-out, or 4 months for restaurants, or 1 month for a kiosk? How do we get faster in our whole turnaround time? And one way to do this is through companies like Lightstore, which are shortening the whole fit-out period from 2 months to 48 hours and bringing new brands. The moment you bring in new brands, it adds more freshness and different kinds of agility. The other way is through, of course, events that we have to do at the mall, because malls are just not places where people come to shop anymore. So then through the artwork or through the installations, of course, you know, again, that's something I feel like every mall does the same stuff. It's the same Christmas, it's the same Dasara, it's the same. So I'm constantly telling the team, do something that other malls are not doing. So yeah, so there are some ideas and hopefully you'll see them implemented in the future. But the idea is how do we get more agile within the space? Now, you mentioned digital. Sometimes the visual merchandising for a store is the same visual. They just change the dress on the mannequin, right? The mannequin is the same for like years on end. They just change the outerwear for the mannequin. But when you have a digital frontage or digital visual merchandising, like some of the Louis Vuitton brands you can see in the airports, it's actually artwork, you know, and that can easily be changed. So when you have a lot of digital signage, a lot of digital visual merchandising, I feel that adds to the freshness, adds to the agility for brands to change the look and feel. And I feel that is where malls should be going towards. How do we make the spaces more agile, the look and feel more agile, and constantly changing to what people need. And that's why, for instance, in Orion Mall, you might go and see we have these large walls, and the idea is every 6 months, let's change that wall. Once it was like a 3D painting of an elephant done by a local artist, so you're supporting local artists. The next day it was, after a few months, we made it a sustainability art wall, like huge, maybe 20 feet high, and maybe 10 feet wide. So again, those walls keep changing. You know, my exteriors can't change, but definitely what I do internally can.
Sure. You know, because you're the joint managing director of Brigade, you've got to take investment decisions across different categories. You could use the same money and invest on residential in a piece of land, or you could invest in, say, an office building in a piece of land, or in retail. And when you think about the current trends in the market, and a mall is physical, in the context of retail getting more digital, office spaces continue to exist with whatever be the challenges of work from home. And residential seems to be on some upsurge, which is currently very good. So how do you then actually justify a balanced portfolio in terms of, you know, I need to put this in, which will be, let's say, 5 years down project. I need to put this down for a today return project. So how do you think about all of this in terms of yields?
Yeah, so retail or malls is one of the various real estate asset classes, I would say. So if we look at, there are primarily 4 or 5 different asset classes for real estate, right? There's residential, there's office, there's retail, there's hospitality or hotels, and now, of course, warehousing and or maybe 6 data centers. So let's just focus on the first 4. So currently, if you look at today's market, residential is doing extremely well. So whatever you're able to build, there's a huge demand and there's not enough supply. Whatever you build is selling, it's selling fast, and it's selling at a very good price. So it seems to be the least risky as of now, but it's also the one with the best returns because you get your money upfront. If you look at office and retail, I actually compared these 2 asset classes. I think they're very similar because the capex, you have to put in a large amount of capital expenditure upfront. And typically, in just similar to retail, you have 9-year, typical most common lease, I would say, is a 9-year lease or a 5-year plus 4-year term. And that's very similar to office. Office also has typically 9-year leases and either 3+3+3 or 5+4 type term. And then, of course, you have hospitality, which is, I would say, the most risky and the most volatile because there is no lease. Every day is like a new lease. Every day you have to sell a new room and, you know, you get, suppose this hotel is 230 keys. Every day I have an inventory of 230 keys that I need to sell or rent or whatever it is for the day. So if I look at between office and retail, retail is slightly more riskier because there is a minimum guarantee plus there's the revenue share component in some of them. But it allows, and typically what we've seen is because if you get the mall right, retail can be better than office. If you don't get the mall product right, office is better than retail. So it's very important you get the mall right in the right location, size of the mall, tenants, everything. So I would say as a real estate developer, when you have 4 asset classes, you have to evaluate a parcel of land based on the highest and best use for that land. So if you're in a location which is very high in residential catchment, but there isn't any retail, say, within a 5K radius, and it's a small parcel of land, then you should do, like maybe 4 to 6 acres, you should do retail. You know, but if you have 15 acres, you can do residential and retail. So for us, we study every parcel of land and evaluate what is the highest and best use. Now, suppose I have only 1 acre in CBD. I may not be able to do a good retail product, but I can do a good hotel product, maybe a budget hotel product for even 1 acre of land. So we have to decide, we have to understand the land parcel, what is the catchment, and then determine what is the highest and best use for that parcel of land. This campus which you're in, Brigade Gateway, is 40 acres. Now, for us, we decided to do a mixed-use product because we said there are a lot of synergies. You know, the residents can go to the mall for shopping, office goers can go to the mall for shopping, the hotel guests can also go to the mall for shopping. So it made sense to do a mall. And when we set up this mall, there was no other mall in this area. Of course, then people think, why are you setting up a mall? You're crazy to set up a mall in this area. It was very new. Malleshwaram at that point did not even have an office building, did not have a high-end hotel. So at that point, seemed like a risky move, but it paid off. So I feel two aspects. You study the catchment, you understand what is the requirement of the catchment, and you study based on the constraints of the land, or the size of the land, or how expensive the land is, then you decide what product to do.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, I'm Pooja Sabarwal and I head partnerships at Capillary. Capillary is a customer retention and engagement firm. Yeah, whatever you spoke around, mall agility was very interesting, but I'm very intrigued about the sport that you took. Like, what inspired you? It's something that most of us don't even know about it, to go through that hard endurance. Like, what was that intrigue? I'm really intrigued by that.
I think, I'd never really challenged myself most of my life. Things were just going along, and at some point in my life, I wanted to do something that was difficult. I think when you do difficult things, you get a lot of confidence, and I think I enjoy sport. I've always been a sports person. Like, I grew up playing basketball and tennis, and I just enjoy sport. And I started running. After my 2 children, I had gained a lot of weight, and I started running. And through the running community, I started hearing about triathlons, and then it got my interest, and then I slowly said, that's what I want to do. And, as you get older, it's not the material, I feel it's not the material things that interest you, it's the other things. So I was turning 40 in a couple of years, like a few years ago I was turning 40. So I told myself that I want to gift myself the ability to do a full Ironman on my 40th birthday. So managed to do that.
Spectacular.
Good. One other question in the back. That's the last question we can take.
Hi, my name is Zeel. I wanted to understand, you said about agility of stores and shifting stores faster in the mall. How do you think they will make the revenue? Because there's a lot of capital investment that goes, right? How do you plan to reduce that capital investment for all the brands that are coming to your mall?
Yeah, so I feel, first of all, capital investment, while a lot of retailers put in a few crores, right, to do their capex. As a mall developer, I put in few hundreds of crores, right? So everybody has to get their return. And I feel that what brands can do is to do the fit outs in a way that a lot of the capex that they're putting in can be reused. They should be, if this store doesn't work, they should be able to reuse it somewhere. And I feel that's what I mean by agile. Like, if I'm doing the fit outs of a store, why should, and if I say, okay, the term is up and I need to go, why should everything go to scrap? Why can't I create fit outs that can be reused in another store? And maybe it should be plug and play. Why do I need 2 months of carpentry and so many different BIM drawings and so many different things? Why can't it just be a little more flexible and use the same fit outs elsewhere? Why can't we create fit outs? I'm not saying today we have solutions for all of those things, but I feel that that is how we should be thinking about. Because yeah, the biggest issue, why is the term so long? I need to recover my capex. That's not a good reason. That's not a good reason. That should not be your reason for having such a long term. If you're not doing well in a store, you should be able to leave in 2 days and fit out in another store where there is more potential in 2 days. I'm just giving 2 days an example, but it could be a week or 10 days or whatever it is. But when I ask the team, why should I understand with theaters, I understand with entertainment guys, they're the capex that they put in are a lot more higher. So I'm not saying short, 3-year terms for FEC and entertainment. Maybe there it could be 6 to 9 years, but why 18 years also? So we have to also find a way to become more efficient in the way we deploy money and reuse things. Anyway, we're talking about circular economy, so we should work towards plug and play retail stores is, I feel, a good way to go in the future.
Great, thank you, Nirupa. Thank you to the audience for this patient listening. Obviously inspired them. We started with half a hall. We've now got a full hall. Thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you so much, Viju.